5 men drive into the night and are completely swallowed by the freezing dark. Their car is found abandoned on a sinister mountain road in perfect working condition. But the men are gone. Months later, the horrifying truth emerges. One man is found starved to death inside a remote cabin, surrounded by untouched food. The remains of 3 others are discovered scattered across the unforgiving wilderness. And the 5th man, simply erased without a trace. What drove them out of a perfectly safe car and into the frozen unknown? This is the chilling enigma of the Yuba County 5. 5 friends from Yuba City, California. In their hometown, everyone simply knew them as the boys. They shared an incredibly pure and inseparable bond. Because all 5 of them lived with mild cognitive disabilities or psychiatric conditions, they understood each other in a way no one else could. They did absolutely everything together, creating a tight-knit brotherhood. Ted Weiher, at 32, was a gentle giant who loved waving at strangers. He had a heart of gold, but the cognitive mind of a much younger child. His close friend, 30-year-old Jack Madruga, was a proud Army veteran. He was known for being incredibly responsible, especially with his prized possession, a 1969 Mercury Montego that he kept in pristine condition. Beside him was 29-year-old Bill Sterling, Jack's absolute best friend. Bill was a deeply religious, sweet-natured soul who spent most of his time reading at the local library. The youngest of them was 24-year-old Jack Hewitt. He was painfully shy, very gentle, and depended heavily on his loving parents for his daily routine. And finally, 25-year-old Gary Mathias, an Army veteran who battled schizophrenia. With the help of his medication and the unwavering support of these 4 men, Gary had finally found a true sense of belonging. Together, they lived quiet, structured lives. They loved playing basketball, relied entirely on their families, and found absolute comfort in their daily routines. And most importantly, in each other. It was Friday, February 24th, 1978. The 5 friends packed into Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego and drove 50 miles north to Chico, California, to watch a college basketball game. But the real excitement wasn't about the game they were watching. It was about the game they were going to play the very next morning. All 5 men played for a local Special Olympics basketball team called the Gateway Gators. Saturday was their championship tournament, and a win meant a free, all-expenses-paid trip to Los Angeles. They had been talking about it for weeks. They were so excited that some of them had even laid out their uniforms on their beds before leaving the house that evening. At 10 p.m., the college game ended. The men stopped at a small convenience store in Chico called Bears Market. They bought sodas, pies, and candy bars. The clerk behind the counter was the last person to ever see them alive. From Chico, the drive back home to Yuba City was a simple, straight shot down Highway 70, a route they were perfectly familiar with. But they never made it home. Instead of heading south toward their beds and their championship game, their car went 70 miles in the exact opposite direction. They drove high up into the treacherous, freezing mountains of the Plumas National Forest. A pitch-black, desolate elevation where they had absolutely no reason to go. 5 men drove up into that frozen darkness. But they would never come back down. 4 days later, high up in the desolate, snow-covered mountains, police finally found Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego. But there was one terrifying problem. The car was completely empty. All 5 men were gone. And the condition of the car made absolutely no sense. It was in perfect working order. It was only slightly stuck in the snow, something that 5 strong, athletic men could have easily pushed out and simply driven away. The engine worked perfectly, and the gas tank still had plenty of fuel. Even if they didn't want to push it, they could have just sat inside the warm car until morning. But they did neither. Instead, the keys were missing. And bizarrely, despite the freezing winter temperatures, one of the car windows was rolled down. They completely abandoned their only safe shelter and walked straight out into the pitch-black, freezing wilderness. Where did they go? And what terrified them so much that they had to flee? Investigators were completely baffled. There were no footprints, no tracks in the snow, and absolutely no clues. It was a complete dead end. It was as if the 5 men had simply vanished into thin air. With the police desperate for answers, a bizarre witness finally came forward, a man named Joseph Shantz. It turns out, on the exact same night the men vanished, Joseph was stranded on that very mountain road, suffering from a wild heart attack in his own car. He told police a chilling story. In the dead of night, he saw headlights pull up behind him. Through the dark, he saw a group of men standing around a parked car. And standing right there with them was a woman holding a baby. Desperate for help, Joseph yelled out to them. But the moment he called out, the group went completely silent. They turned off their headlights, stopped talking, and simply vanished into the dark trees. Was this just the hallucination of a dying man? Or did the 5 friends follow a phantom woman into the freezing abyss? Months passed, and the brutal winter snow finally began to melt. In June of 1978, a group of motorcyclists were riding deep into the Plumas National Forest when they noticed a horrifying smell coming from an abandoned Forest Service trailer. This trailer was located nearly 20 miles uphill from where the car was found. Inside, they made a gruesome discovery. It was the body of 32-year-old Ted. He was wrapped tightly in 8 blankets. He had frozen and starved to death, losing nearly half of his body weight. But the details of this cabin made the mystery even more terrifying. Directly outside the trailer was a massive propane tank attached to an indoor heating system. It had never been turned on. Inside the cabin storage locker was a full 1-year supply of dry food and military rations. Only a few cans had been opened. The rest of the locker was completely untouched. Ted had slowly starved to death over several weeks, surrounded by a mountain of food, and froze to death with fuel just feet away. Over the next few days, investigators searched the surrounding woods. They found the scattered, skeletal remains of Jack Madruga, Bill, and Jack Hewitt. But the 5th man, Gary Mathias, he was completely gone. The only trace of Gary was his tennis shoes, left behind inside the trailer. It appeared he had taken Ted's heavier leather shoes and walked back out into the freezing unknown. Gary was never seen again. Why did they abandon a perfectly safe, warm car to walk into the freezing darkness in the first place? Did Gary leave the trailer to find help for his dying friend? Did a psychological breakdown doom the entire group? Or were all 5 men absolutely terrified, hiding in the dark trailer, starving themselves because they were too scared to go outside? Too scared of whoever, or whatever, chased them out of their vehicle and up that terrifying mountain. Nearly 50 years later, the forest remains silent. And the tragic fate of the Yuba County 5 remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in history. What do you think happened to the Yuba County 5 on that freezing mountain? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you seek the truth behind the unknown, subscribe to Mystery Uncut. The mystery remains, but we won't stop looking.